You could be missing out on a lot of damage if you do not know this one crucial detail with the wizard. Let's get into it. So as you can see in the top left corner, we have reached Paragon 150, and that means that we have a full set of gear that we can actually use with our specific essences on them, as well as our set items. So if you do want to check out more wizard content and what I've learned over the past 2 weeks of heavily grinding this character, and of course me testing a bunch of set items, be sure to hit that sub button. But for today, we're going to be talking about the mechanic of Disintegrate or Ray of Frost and the Ice Crystal. Now, this is a mechanic that a lot of you know, and it's very, very simplistic. All you're going to do is place down the Ice Crystal and actually cast the beam onto the Ice Crystal. Now, most people know how to do this combo. However, a lot of people do not know that you are missing out on damage if all you do is this combo. And in fact, only time you should be using this combo is if you need a ton of AoE damage or need to extend your range. For that purpose, oftentimes using something like this build in dungeon runs or open world farming or something like a challenge rift could potentially be worse off because you'll get less damage than running something else. And I'll go ahead and jump over to my challenge rift here earlier today and showcase what I mean by we're getting less damage. Rift, and we are going on to the boss. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and showcase here is the damage difference between actually using the Ice Crystal combo and just using the Disintegrate Ray or Ray of Frost directly on the target. You can see here we're ticking for about 5,791. If we just scroll back here and check that out again, you can see that I'm consistently hitting for about 5,800 damage, or around 5,400 to 5,800 because of the variant damage in the game. You can see here, very, very, very easy to see. We also got a little bit of a crit there. And then you'll see, I'm going to go ahead and drop the Ice Crystal off to the side. And then we're going to channel right into the boss. You'll see 3,800, 4,000, 4,200. You can see very, very clearly that we're losing about 20% of our damage by doing this. Now, it's important to note that the Ice Crystal itself, you'll see here, it actually ticks quite a bit and actually does damage itself to the boss. So the Ice Crystal itself actually does damage, so that is a separate ability. But what I'm saying here is that you can use a replacement ability and you do not need to use the Ice Crystal at all, and you can get more damage out of your build. So what skill can we replace that Ice Crystal with? And we're going to be focusing on the single target here because we're focusing on dungeons, we're focusing on challenge rifts, we're focusing on elder rifts, that type of content. And generally speaking, what you're going to want is basically a condensed skill that's going to give you a lot of damage rather than spreading out your damage all over the place, specifically for the boss fights and the really, really strong challenge rift bosses or dungeon bosses, which will help you speed up your time. And so what we're running here is going to be Disintegrate, but a little bit of a modification here. We're going to run Arcane Wind, and we're going to run Meteor, and then lastly Teleport and Electrocute or Magic Missile. Both are solid. Magic Missile is going to give you a little bit of extra single target damage. However, Electrocute is going to help you clear out some of the trash a little bit easier. I oftentimes find myself using Magic Missile. Electrocute is going to be more of a farming build. So we're going to swap into Magic Missile here for that single target damage. Now we're also using Teleport here, and Teleport's mainly just for us to maneuver a little bit more. We could run a separate damaging skill. However, even in dungeons, you do want a little bit of mobility to keep up with your squad, especially with Teleport because you can hop over terrain. So it's the best option, especially with some of the legendary items that we can modify it with to give us extra damage. So we're going to go through the essences here. We have Leanne's Resonant Wisdom. This is going to give you a little bit of a lightning field after you teleport and do an extra damage. This thing is going to do a little bit of extra damage. Then we're going to have the Starcaller's Drapery. This is going to give your meteor basically an extra radius here, making it a larger area of effect. Then we're going to have the Searing Judgment. This is going to make Disintegrate burn enemies for additional damage over time. Then we're going to get Galebringer's Leggings, and this is going to increase our Arcane Wind damage by 10%, which is our little Arcane Wind. And if we check out our weapon here, the Wind Shaper, this is going to make our Arcane Wind now a tornado that follows enemies and continuously damage all enemies in its path. You can see here, that is what the Wind Shaper does. Then we're going to have the last one, Unrepentant Gale. And so instead of Wind Shaper making our charges completely down to 1, we're going to get an additional charge with Unrepentant Gale. And the whole idea behind this build, which I think a lot of you've seen with the Firestorm build, is that Arcane Wind gets an additional 50% increased damage against burning enemies. And this tornado does a lot of damage already, 21k for my skills here. With the 50% additional damage, it's going to do about 31k for you per charge, which is absolutely absurd. Keep in mind, we're getting that 10% extra damage, so it'll end up being about 35k around that point, which is really, really solid. Disintegrate, obviously, we're going to do this for the potential additional damage, and this also gives us a little bit of AoE for some of those trash monsters that we're clearing on our way through the dungeon, or just overall through our Elder Rifts or in Challenge Rifts. Gives us a little bit of AoE, but oftentimes people are chasing you, and so the line is going to be perfectly good enough to hit all the targets, whereas the Ice Crystal, you're going to have to place that, and then oftentimes people move out of it, and it'll hit everyone in the area. It just doesn't do as much damage, which will also cause burning, so that the Arcane Wind will do more damage here. Then we have Meteor. Once again, this is going to deal a bunch of damage, stun enemies, so it's actually really, really solid for controlling a little bit of the enemies in Challenge Rifts, if you happen to go that way, and giving us a little bit of extra burn damage over 6 seconds, as well as making it a solid AoE. And then Magic Missile, of course, for the just single target damage, and then Teleport to keep us moving. So once again, I want to mention here that this isn't the only Challenge Rift build out there. This is by far maybe not even the best Challenge Rift build. This is more of a pure damage build. And so when you're talking about single target burst damage for bosses, for Challenge Rifts, or for dungeons, this is the build I recommend going with. It's going to give you a little bit of extra damage compared to some of the other builds like Lightning Nova, as well as potentially Ice Crystal out there. There's a few modifications you can use for the pants. I believe one of them is called Rift Dancer's Stride. Actually, I probably should head over to the essences and show you here real quick. But the Rift Dancer's Stride is going to give you a little bit of extra damage when you teleport and land in that area. As well as another one, if you want a teeny bit more AoE for your Disintegrate to kind of get additional channels out. And where is it? Rift Dancer's Stride, going to give you the extra damage when you teleport to a location. And then the, where is it? The Chaos Nexus here. It's going to give you additional beams nearby enemies, and it's going to deal a little bit of extra damage. So very, very solid. And I'll just go ahead and run a Challenge Rift here. It's not particularly difficult because I'm kind of under-leveled for Challenge Rifts, rather, or I haven't pushed it too much because I just reached Paragon 150. But we're going to go ahead and showcase what it's like to just have a bunch of damage in these Challenge Rifts, because it is absolutely insane. Definitely one of the strongest single target damage I've seen, and outclasses the Crusader from what I've seen. Unless you have a Crusader of your own on your party, then they're just going to boost all of your damage. So quite solid. And again, we're just going to clear through here, and I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead a little bit after I deal with this elite pack, just to kind of show what the build kind of entails. We kind of run around. Of course, you're going to gather up all the enemies just like normal. Just going to drop that Disintegrate Ray, drop the Meteor, and then drop the double Tornado. And you can see that orange number. It's going to give you that orange number when you are having an enemy being burned. If not, it's going to be a white number, and that's how you know you're getting the extra 50% damage from Arcane Wind. I'll go ahead and jump over to the boss here so you can see the DPS when we're dealing with a boss target. So we're at the boss fight here, and I highly recommend that you don't just channel your Disintegrate Ray completely on the boss, but kind of cancel it and weave autos into it. So we're gonna go and drop that Meteor, drop the double Tornado, and then cancel our Disintegrate Ray, and then drop it again so that we can weave in some of our autos. Again, if you can, try to land the teleport with the lightning field on top of the boss in order for us to get a little bit of extra damage. And once again, this is kind of how the build goes, just dropping as much damage as we can. And once again, this is very, very quick DPS that we were able to get down. And look at that, double legendary from this specific challengers, which is pretty crazy, to be honest. I've never seen that, but pretty solid single target DPS to really get down those bosses. I am going to be checking out some additional builds. In fact, I've found out a farming build, which I find very, very fun and very, very quick, allowing you to get a little bit of extra loot throughout farming. But if you did enjoy the video, be sure to sub to the channel and check out more daily Diablo Immortal content. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of information about the ice crystal and potentially maybe getting some damage loss by using it too much. That being said, hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.